Hello and welcome to Romantasy Readers Podcast. My name is Nicole and I'm here with the lovely Alley, and we are super excited. We have a very, very big episode for you today. We have Crescent City 3.
It's
We have Crescent
finally
City
time.
3.
Finally time.
It is finally time. We've got our copies. We have read them. I'm almost finished with my second read through. Alley, you were up till late very one night reading it. Tell me all about your experience of reading Crescent City 3.
Oh my gosh, it was so good and frustrating at the same time. I had taken the 30th off of work, as I think I said in this podcast. And then I just kept getting these important meetings that kept coming up. And so I ended up canceling my PTO, which is a bummer. So I thought that I was going to just go to the midnight release party for a couple hours and then come home, because I found a copy of the book at 4 p.m. on the 29th. It was so exciting. I found the copy of the book on the 29th, so I was going to read.
Yes.
And then I ended up having so much fun at the midnight release party that I stayed. So I stayed late, and then I got home, and I was pretty tired, and I knew I had to be up early the next day, so I only read 7 or 8 chapters, which is still a lot.
I know. Yeah,
Then,
it's a big book. It's 837 pages. There's a lot of book there to read.
Yes. And then throughout the week, I kept finding it challenging to find time. So by the weekend, I was maybe 40% of the way through.
Yeah.
And then one night, Friday night of that week, I stayed up till 4 a.m. and finished the book.
Once you get to the last 200 pages, there's just no going back at that point.
No, because I was able to log off of work early. So I think I started around probably 4 p.m., maybe a little earlier. And I literally read for 12 hours straight. And I was just screaming and messaging Nicole and sending her voice memos and sending her recordings of myself, just yelling. And at one point, my husband was just like, "Can you just calm down?" But I couldn't calm down.
I'm like, you can't expect me to calm down. This is a huge moment for Romantasy readers, okay? I need to talk about it. I need to process. So for everyone else, I managed to get a copy a couple of days early, which ended up being really good because I was able to get it all read. I've just drilled through it the first time. As a matter of fact, I would say I rush read it. I got obsessed with certain theories that we can talk about later on, and I just couldn't really. I was just obsessed with ACOTAR world, and then I was almost just looking for ACOTAR the whole way through the book. So I was almost flicking chapters, just going, when am I going to see Nesta, Azrael, and Bryce again? When are they coming back together? Where is my maas-universe? Where is Throne of Glass? So I kind of rush read it, but I did get the general sort of idea. Then I got my copy on release day, which was a few hours ahead of the US, and I then read fairly slowly. You know what doesn't work well together? Having a great big 837-page novel, Instagram, Bookstagram, and a podcast. You kind of get distracted.
A job and being a mom and all the other things that go into life.
Yeah, I had to keep feeding my kids. It was really annoying. I'd be in the middle of reading and they'd be like, "Mum, you don't love us anymore. I need food. I haven't eaten in 8 hours." But I just didn't have time to read. And then I was just so excited because I did know what was going to happen and I'd had to hold all my theories and thoughts inside. And then I just wanted to see everyone's reaction. So I'm just on Instagram and TikTok and I'm talking to you and I'm like, "Alley, what are you up to? What are you up to? What chapter?" So I kind of didn't really get into my own reading. So only now am I nearly at the very end of my second read through. But wow. It really is. We can talk more about it in a sec. I think my first read, I was truthfully disappointed. I haven't even shared my final reaction because my final reaction was really, really bad. I was like, that was shit. I was like, what kind of ending is that? That is not what I wanted. It's like, okay, I guess everyone just lives happily ever after. That's the end of the trilogy. Goodbye, everyone. But reading it second time round with a few more theories and experts that I've been talking to, I can see so much more story after this. I can see so many Easter eggs that are potentially coming, and I'm actually way more excited about it. I'm like, oh, this is actually amazing. How about
I
you?
think a lot of readers feel that way. I think a lot of readers, especially hardcore SJM fans who have been super stoked for the multiverse, you know, and we're
Yes.
expecting this like intergalactic, massive, epic story, felt disappointed.
Yeah.
I felt that way. I was a little disappointed. However, thankfully for me, because Nicole had read it a few days early, she was able to give me a heads up. She didn't spoil anything, but was just like, you know, just keep your expectations that like this is still a Crescent City book, I think is what you said, which
Yeah.
kind of helped me interpret like, okay, most of the book is in Midgard. And so
Exactly.
when I had that expectation, I maybe wasn't as disappointed, though I was still a little disappointed. So I really had to kind of take a minute and bring myself back up and out of like that disappointment and be like, okay, for what the book was it a good book? And then I was able to like, once I kind of had that, then I was able to really start appreciating it and understanding what it was. And upon reflection, you know, I think those expectations that we all had, maybe that we should have just seen that like that was never going to happen.
Exactly. I
Right.
know. We let's be honest, we got that little teaser in Crescent City 2 of the crossover between ACOTAR and Crescent City, and we all just went full mass-verse. We went, this is the Avengers of Sarah
Yeah.
Mass world. We had theories on Throne of Glass. We had theories on what they do in ACOTAR. We have Dust Court theories. We had everything, and we wanted it all in this book. And it's the same. I wanted it in there and I wanted more, but I can also see how she needed to tie up Crescent City in this book. And that's what she's done. And I think sometimes people have spoken to this book, even though it's so big, actually feeling a little rushed with how she kind of defeats the Asteri in the end. It's all sort of done in 10 days. Sometimes things almost felt a little bit easy, but I can also understand that Sarah really needed to wrap this story up in this book so that she would then have the free reign to explore some of the bigger stories in the future books
Yeah.
to come. But it was, yeah, there was that initial disappointment because now we have to wait 2 years for anything like that to happen. And we just wanted that from this book. We were so excited. And it's only once you're able to step away, calm down, and think, okay, this is Midgard. I'm actually going to invest in these characters and I'm actually going to sort of see this through, that I was actually then able to enjoy and appreciate this book.
Yes. Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree. And that doesn't mean there aren't parts of the book that don't frustrate me. There definitely are. There are some things that were a slog. There were some things that were frustrating, which I think we'll talk about. But overall, like I called this a 5-star book. Like I think this is a 5-star book. And you know, when you think about this from like a commercial perspective, from a selling books perspective, it makes a lot of sense. Like I think somebody who had not read the rest of Crescent City, or sorry, the rest of the Massverse, could actually read this book and be fine. I
Yeah.
think they, if they hadn't
Mhm.
read ACOTAR and Throne of Glass, they
Don't
could read
have
this book
to.
and be fine. They do not have to, and I think that's a smart business move, right? And at the end of the
Mhm.
day, like the reason SJM gets to do this and make these epic worlds is because she sells a lot of books, right? Like we can't lose sight of the fact that, you know, an independent publisher would not be able to make this like 16 world mass verse, you know, and the publisher's just like, yeah, whatever you want to make, right? So she has to be able to sell books that then gives her the freedom to do whatever she wants to do in the future,
Oh,
and also not
definitely.
isolate readers, right? There's a lot of people who are coming to her world through Crescent City, and it's important that they can enjoy it.
Well, exactly. And as you know, Crescent City was my very first book. That's how I found Sarah J. Maas and I entered the world of Romantasy. It was Crescent City 1. So I hadn't read ACOTAR yet. I hadn't read Throne of Glass. I think Crescent City 1 doesn't give much away. It's still very much a separate book in the first one. So then it was completely fine I then jumped into the Throne of Glass world and then finished with A Court of Thorn and Roses. But yeah, you definitely don't have to have read it. Obviously, you're going to get more out of the books if you have read Throne of Glass and ACOTAR, obviously particularly ACOTAR with Crescent City 2, but it's not imperative. You could probably read these books and enjoy them. It would actually be even really interesting to get the
Yeah.
perspective of a reader who hadn't read those books and how they interpreted, like a lot of people, and we can talk about it in a bit, were quite frustrated at Bryce and the interaction she had with Nestor and Azriel in the first part of the book, and her sort of reactions, running away all the time, like just trying to blindside them all the time, whether that would be seen in a different light, not having that history with Azriel and Nestor and kind of knowing those characters. So
Yeah.
I think it definitely, look, I will take anything Sarah gives us. If she gives us a novella, if she gives us, like, I will just take it, I will obsess over it, and I will enjoy it and eat it up. I also give this book 5 stars. Now, for everyone to know, I have a 6-star rating, right? I have a very rare 6 stars that I give to very rare books. Like A Court of Mist and Fury falls into the 6-star category. Fourth Wing falls into the 6-star category. These are books that you just have to go back and read over and over again because you just can't get enough of it. You're obsessed with it. You're in love with it. It is just the top of the top. Now, for me, the first like 25 chapters of this book actually were at that level. I was like, and I have already gone back and I've read the bonus chapter about 3 times. I've read, I've just read the same chapters over and over again. I'm seeing huge stories there. It then dropped for me once we went back to Crescent City, and especially because I was struggling with some of the characters and the connection. I then kind of brought it back to 4 stars on my first read. I was like, I'm not liking where this is going. What was the whole purpose of those first 25 chapters? I'm just confused now. And I sort of came away obviously not really liking the story, but I still appreciated that it would probably be a 5-star read just from the quality of the writing. But on my second read through and seeing all these Easter eggs that are being laid, like I feel like I'm in year 12 literature again. I read a sentence and I think about it from all these different perspectives. I'm going, but what if like the Princes of Hell are actually the villains? Like if we now look at what they're saying to Bryce, what if they're not telling her the full truth? When they say this line, when the Oracle said something, did it have a double meaning? So I'm just breaking down every sentence. Like this is insane level writing to be that level of detail.
And let's be clear, like there are like if we go back to ACOTAR, there are things that had double meanings, right? That we love. Okay. Like when the Suriel says to Feyre, stay with the High Lord. Okay. Like that was a double meaning, so
yes,
we're not,
exactly.
I don't think that you're over analyzing for no reason, because I do think that is what SJM does. Is she does put in a lot of,
she loves to leave
them,
Easter eggs and trick her readers.
Yeah. The other thing I want to say, kind of generally before we start talking about like, details and things we didn't like and all of that is, I think that this Crescent City series for SJM is her kind of way to prove like, I can do high fantasy too. I can do your classic fantasy with just a little bit of smut. Because I think the criticism that she got, maybe not so much anymore, but in the early years, was that like, it's really easy to write books that people like when like it's just smut, right? That there's no plot, it's just smut. And so I have to think it was intentional, right? Is she's trying to say like, I can do smutty, I can do YA, and I can do straight fantasy. I don't even think I would classify this series as romantasy anymore, knowing what all 3 books look like. Yes, there's a little bit of spice in book 2, but still very little. I would just classify this as a fantasy series with a romance,
aspect,
minuscule plot line, right?
Yeah.
And I love that. I love that for her. I love that like now, we can tell some of our friends who are high fantasy readers like, hey, like go read this. In fact, I have a friend, he's a friend of my husband's, but he and I are also pretty close, and he started reading Crescent City. He hasn't read anything else. And he's like loving it, and he typically reads like Brandon Sanderson. He typically reads much more classic fantasy stuff, and he's like, why is nobody talking about this series? The series is so good. He's like already on the second book. He was like, oh, I'm so excited to get through it so I can finally listen to your podcast. And I was like, I'm not going to spoil anything for you, but you're not going to be able to listen to my podcast.
Maybe just like also read Throne of Glass and ACOTAR before jumping on our podcast, because you may get some spoilers about other things as well. This is definitely a spoiler-filled podcast. That's so interesting. It is a bit of a more, probably for Sarah J. Maas, a more male-friendly book series.
I think it is.
Because it's very sort of story orientated, sometimes to a point of frustration. Like,
For
I
us
didn't love the
romantasy lovers,
second book.
yeah.
I felt like there was just a lot of filler story without that real deep, what is the purpose here? What are we really driving towards? Like, obviously, as romantasy readers, we love the long game of the romance, of the girl defeating the villains and winning overall, and characters, growing and finding themselves and being brave and kicking butt and all that sort of thing. And we sort of, I don't know, the second book for me was definitely the weakest of the lot. The first one I think was great. There was a lot of world building you had to get your head around, but then of course the romance has always been a little bit light, and I can see that. I definitely think you're fairly accurate that I think this is Sarah J. Maas trying to do something different and trying to open this up to other audiences, not just the romantasy audience.
Yeah. I want to ask you, so how do you rank the 3 books of Crescent City only? Like, what do you think is the best? What do you think is the worst? Like 1, 2, 3. How do you rank
Yep.
them?
Well, as you said, Crescent City was the very first book. I loved it. I'd never read anything else, so I didn't know how good her other books could be, but I really enjoyed
Yeah.
it. I liked Bryce. I liked the romance. I liked the fantasy, the action. I did find like the ballet and the hooves and stuff a little bit confusing. I was like, I don't know how that works, but but I really enjoyed it. So for me, that was definitely a 5-star book. I enjoyed the first one. The second was obviously the weakest for me. I sort of struggled with it the first time, and I struggled with it even more the second time before we came and reviewed it on this podcast. So for me, with the exception of the last 100 pages, which just
Right.
like,
Right.
are amazing. So for me, that book was 4 stars. It was good, but not great. It was a little bit fillery. I just felt like it needed a bit more of the bigger overarching story. And obviously she was saving a lot of that because then she has brought us this last book, and boom, has she delivered. She has given us answers for everyone. Every single character has developed, changed, like theories have been answered. We got so much in this book. So there's no way I cannot give this book 5 stars. It really was,
Yeah.
for me, I think it was the best of the 3. It just gave us all
That's
the
yeah.
answers. It tied everything up really, really beautifully, really. And
Yeah.
regardless of whether I feel good or bad about what's happened for some of the characters, and I still think it is 100% a 5-star read, with even little snippets of a 6-star. And I 100% believe the next book and the book after that are going to be 6-star reads. I just know we're coming into something
Yeah.
huge next.
Yeah. Yes.
Yourself?
I agree. I think it is the best of the CC books. And I know there's a lot of people who don't agree with that. There's a lot of people that I've talked to on Instagram that feel like it's the worst.
Mm.
But I wonder if they'll change their minds after they really sit with it and let go of their expectations.
Yeah.
But I do think it's the best of the 3. I think that even though, it's kind of unrealistic to think about the fact that it only happened in 7 days or 10 days or whatever, I actually kind of like that. I like how fast it moved.
Yes.
Um, and then I think if I rank them, it's like CC3, CC1, and then CC2 for me as well. So that's kind of how I rank them. But I do think it's the best of the
Yeah,
3.
I agree. And I know where they're coming from. My expectations were so high. And this is one of the challenges with these big writers and big books. You go in, we did a bit of a similar thing with Iron Flame. You have these
Yeah.
huge expectations, and sometimes they're not met. And then we get really disappointed. And it's easy to let that disappointment kind of cover actually maybe what was really going on and actually the quality of the book. But as I said,
Mhm.
going back with a calmer mind for the second read and then knowing where my expectations should be, I got so much out of this book. Like, the writing is next level. She is
Yeah.
insane. The encyclopedia that must be in her brain, that she is, as I said, just
Mhm.
laying this groundwork for the future books, and the way she's tied up these characters, it really is beautiful. There was a lot of story and obviously not as much character development as you would sort of expect with it being over 10 days. Yes, maybe the hysteria got wound up a little bit quickly for 15,000-year-old, villains. They kind of did get sorted out quite quickly. That was probably one of my only frustrations. I felt like maybe that should have taken longer, but I can be fairly forgiving of that with the belief that the next book is going to be insane and awesome, and we needed to tie this up so that we could have free reign for the next book.
Mhm. And
Mm.
I mean, look, like, think about it. The villains in ACOTAR all got tied up quickly, right? Amarantha gets dealt with in a book.
Mhm.
Then the Highburn stuff is wrapped up in 2 books. Um, there's lingering villains, but like she does wrap her villains up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And even like, look, even Throne of Glass, you don't know who the big villain is with a capital B till halfway through the series. So
Yeah.
what makes us think, like, of course we've all thought that the Asteri were going to be, the epic kind of intergalactic villain, but perhaps they're not,
Yeah.
which we'll talk about.
Well,
I think we
exactly.
both
I
we
I
both
think when
think
I
that.
first finished this and I just went, "That's it. That's it. That's done now. That's the trilogy. It's all finished now." And I couldn't help feeling disappointed. And all I could see was some little, maybe Tharian, who I don't really care that much about, and Ethan a little bit more with his love story and things like that. But I was like, we're sort of done with the main characters. It was only on the second read I picked up all the Easter eggs and I went, "Oh, wow, we're probably right back at the very, like, if we compared it to Throne of Glass, we're probably still back at book 1. We have no idea yet about the story that's going. The last page of Crescent City 3 and the last page of ACOTAR, very similar, people, very similar. Put those 2 pages side by side and just look at them because they are extremely similar and will be part of many theories to come. But, so it is not uncommon that we think we're at the end, but I actually just think we're at the beginning. And it's so exciting. It is so exciting because the next book is just going to be insane. It's going to be insane. I'm already so
Yeah.
excited. All right. Let's jump into a breakdown of our book. All right. So you have to tell me, what was your favorite scene or scenes? What were some of your favorite parts of the book?
Okay, I can't necessarily I can't say like this one scene or this one chapter, but I have like pockets of things.
Mhm.
So, obviously, I loved part 1. I loved,
Yes.
like, I was just obsessed with part 1. Again, even though it wasn't what we expected, right? We
Mhm.
barely see Reese, we don't get to see Pharaoh, we don't get to see Nyx, all these
No.
people that we thought we would see. I love going back and thinking about, like, we were so sure that we would even see
I
Aelin in this book.
know.
We're
We were
crazy.
like,
We
"What's
were
Nick's
crazy.
gonna be like?" And,
I
what's gonna
know.
we just had the most biggest grandiose plans of how she was just gonna
Yeah.
engage with everyone in ACOTAR world.
All right away. Yeah. No. But I loved all that. I loved the, like, budding friendship between Nesta and Bryce,
Yes.
with also them sort of really just like taking no shit from each other. Like, I love that they like both continued to outsmart each other. I loved everything with Azriel.
We didn't
Yes.
know what that was gonna be. Like, we had theorized, we couldn't tell whether they were gonna be best friends or biggest enemies, Nesta and
Yeah.
Bryce, right? We were like, these 2 are strong personalities. Like, they're either gonna get along like a house on fire or they're gonna, like, hate each other.
Hate each
And
other.
we interestingly got something in between. I think we got the
Yeah.
idea that they could totally be best friends, but because they were both coming from different worlds and neither of them were wanting to give too much away, and in truth, Nesta was probably actually fairly forthcoming, but she had like Az and Reese and stuff around her being like, "Don't tell her anything. Don't tell her anything about our world. She might take her back to the villains in her world and, and put us in danger." So they were both keeping their cards close to their chest. But I loved it. It was so
Yeah.
good. They
Yeah.
were
They
vibing.
they clearly by the end had so much respect for each other, which I think is so
100%.
important for the future, because I do not think this is the last time that Nesta and Bryce will interact. Not one
No.
bit do I think that.
Yep.
And so I'm so happy that they have the beginnings of a friendship, because I can see them just being a powerhouse in the future.
Yes.
Um yeah.
Yes.
The other stuff that Oh, sorry, go ahead. Did
Oh, no,
you
no, no.
want to
I
move
mean,
on
I
in
was
that
just gonna
topic?
say that, like, the only thing that was really hard was having Bryce backstabbing them, and you're there thinking, "No, Bryce, don't do that. It's Nesta and it's Az. You can trust them. Open up and talk
Yeah.
to them. They'll be cool. You can totally tell them everything that's going on in your world. They'll be fine."
Yeah.
But as I said, on reflection, I can understand where Bryce was in that moment. I mean, her mate is being tortured. Her brother is being tortured. She really doesn't have time. As frustrated as I was that she wasn't open and forthcoming with communication and just telling the truth, I can understand why she didn't know these people. Didn't know if she could trust them. And she sort of had to keep some of her cards close to her chest. But
Mhm.
yeah, I agree that I just loved I could have just had a whole book of Nesta and Bryce and Azrael
Yeah, I
and
don't
like
even need
in the
plot.
cave.
I just they could just wander around those tunnels for a whole book without
endlessly.
anything happening.
I would have been fine.
Yeah.
Playing their
There are
music.
other things.
Yes.
We're going to talk about those chapters a lot in future episodes as we start to theorize, but today we're just kind of keeping it like high level. I also loved everything with Rune and Lydia. Like,
Yes.
oh my God. I really hope that they're a major focus of the next book or some kind of like spinoff, or God, I would be so happy if we just got like a novella, Court of Frost and Starlight style, about them just kind of like settling into their apartment and domestic life. Like, you know,
Yes.
it's so cute.
Well, they're totally mates, right? They've got to be mates. You can tell, like, when they
knew
times.
it instantly.
Mm.
Rune saw her, and this is going to come important. This is going to be important for us for future theories. But like, Rune saw her and immediately was like, "That's Day," and holy shit, that's my mate. Like, he smelled her, even if he didn't say it, he knew it instantly. And so did she. So I think that they were just so cute, and like, I just loved everything to do with them.
They were, to me, they were one of the best romances in the whole book. They actually carried it. I was almost, the only thing I was upset about was that there wasn't more Rune and Lydia spice. Like, I would have liked a whole lot more Rune and Lydia spice. There was some, but it was like I could have had a whole lot more of that, because I just loved, and even like, Lydia being the main person that helped them escape. That her love for him was like, I have to help him escape. I'm the only person that can do this, that can orchestrate this to happen at the level with the Asteri and everything. And she orchestrates the whole thing and puts herself on the line. And it was so good. And then just to see them just slowly build from that, and then sort of slowly fall in love with each other was it was beautiful.
And that scene when they're in like the horse barn on Avalon, and everyone's like sleeping in a stall next to them, and they're like, things are getting spicy, and then people are like, shut up. I was like, can't they just go find their own spot? Like,
exactly. They've just gone to like a room in the back with a roaring fireplace and some fur rugs, and had a nice intimate scene there.
Like,
even when they did finally have their spice scene, when they finally have their spice scene, her sons have been abducted. She's all freaked out about that. And she's like, I just sort of want to forget about it for a little bit. So it's kind of a rushed kind of intimate sex scene. And you're just like, I want it to be like, I want it to be about 10 pages. Okay. I want 10 pages of this spice scene.
There was like a part where, because we're in Rune's head, we're in his POV, and he's like, oh man, if only I had that lip ring. And I was like, we have to go see where he has the lip ring.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I mean, I guess the next book, I mean, he's going to probably put it back in, and then we'll get more then. Probably. But then the first one is so important. The first one is like, that one's pretty pivotal, and it was a little bit rushed. I would have liked longer, more pages, Sarah. Could have done with 840 pages. You could have added another 3 pages of spice there for Rune and Lydia. My only little bit of feedback.
Yeah, just small tweaks.
That's it.
Yeah.
Bonus
and
chapter.
Then, so then the third, like, I'm kind of giving like my top 3 things, and like my third one really is just like Rune killing the Autumn King. I just found it so epic. I loved that it was Rune who got to do it. I loved that then like Bryce killed the other guy. I love that like he rescued her. I love that he kind of realized like what the Oracle meant, that he revealed that to his father. He just got payback in the best way. I really thought the Autumn King was going to turn out like not good, but like better, but he really didn't. He stayed evil. And so I was happy that he had an epic death at Rune's hands. That whole, like, that is the moment I can remember it viscerally, because it was about 6:00 on Friday night, and I had been reading, and it was like that moment that I like started sending you all of these like constant videos, reactions, and like freaking out stuff. And then it was like from that point on, I just like could not stop reading. Like that point on for me was like the turning point. Like, have to keep going.
Yes. It was Rune's kill, wasn't it? Like what the Autumn King had done to him as a child. It was Rune's kill. Like it wasn't Bryce. It was Rune that had to do it. So it was perfect payback and doing it, saving his sister. It was just a lot of meaning behind it. I think I got emotional actually reading this part just because just the enormity of it. It was so huge and just freeing for Rune. Like, I think there was still a part of him that was sort of tied down and trapped by his father, and just him being alive just still had that, just that freedom he has post that. You just see Rune actually matured so much in this book. Like, that's what I love about Lydia. Because before Lydia, he was living this university lifestyle. He was smoking the myrrh root. He was just hooking up randomly. He was just living a boy's life. Then he met Lydia. She snapped him into shape. She was like, "You need to mature up, boy." Like, and then he just kind of did. He was just like, "You know what? I'm manning up.
Like, act like a prince." And he was like, "Yes, ma'am. I will."
Exactly. And I've loved it. I love that she has like forced him to kind of rise up, and he's just doing it now, and he's really becoming the character I've always wanted him to be. So I love that scene as well. It was so good.
Absolutely. Okay, what do you have other favorite scenes or things that I didn't bring up?
Obviously mine are pretty similar. You know, the first 25 chapters was everything for me. There was particularly chapter 17. I spoke about that to you, saying you need to read this chapter. There was certain hand holding that happened for extended periods of time that blew my mind. There was a certain grabbing Bryce to a chest that, you know, while Nesta is over there with the, you know, with the mask on, and I'm just like, what is going on here? This is insane. So that whole part, I was pretty excited. So that was definitely a huge part for me. Another huge part that I just loved was Ethan becoming Prime. I just loved Ethan throughout this story. I loved his growth. We kind of knew. I think we had anticipated that at some point he was going to rise up and potentially lead the pack. But actually seeing that come into fruition was really, really awesome. And the way he did it.
Oh, just doing it in a way where it's like he did it because he had to, you know? It was like, if I don't do this, if I don't become the Prime, then Sabine is just gonna completely destroy what I love, which is, you know, the pack and the wolves and what they stand for. And I love a reluctant kind of like leader, you know? I really do.
Sometimes it was almost frustrating that Ethan didn't see his own potential and just rise up. Sometimes you just wanted to go, Ethan, just snap into shape. You need to realize you should lead. And I think Jessica was in the background trying to like push him along the whole time. Like, go on. She's just priming him up ready. She's just like getting him ready, putting him in the situations. You know, even the Viper Queen, even though she was kind of evil about it, I think she had intention. She was very much wanting to see who was going to win that fight between Sigrid and Ethan. And I think she kind of orchestrated that. She was like, only one of you is going to be Prime, and you need to fight it out to figure out who that's going to be. And so much of it was about Ethan's own growth and realizing that he actually had the strength within himself to actually lead. But then when the elder Prime came out, and, you know, and Ethan's trying to tell everyone about the parasite and that they've actually got way more power because obviously they're actually Fae. And of course, you know, Sabine's there dissing him. Sigrid's come in. She's full on turned into oh my God, what's it called again?
A Reaper.
A Reaper. And they're like, it's all looking like it's going to go bad. And then the Elder Prime comes in and says, I nominate you as my next in line. Like, you're the next Prime. And I'm just like, oh my God.
It was so great. It was so great.
And then we hear a howl from the Bone Quarter. That's Connor. Oh. And I'm just like, oh my God. Oh my God.
So that was really, I will say a lot of the Ethan stuff, you know, it wasn't my favorite part for sure. Because I was just like, okay,
main story, please. Main story.
Yeah.
This was on the second read. Yeah.
But it was worth it for that scene, because I did love that scene, and I did love that he became Prime, and I think that's really helpful and important, and I think that's going to come in incredibly important for future books.
Exactly. And I think this is this book in a nutshell. I don't think you will have absorbed everything in the first read. I would encourage everyone, even people that didn't love it so much, to go and actually read it again, because you just can't absorb all this information in your first read. You tended to have your parts that you loved the most. You tend to focus on them, and these parts were just annoying sometimes. Like Tharian just did not need Tharian whatsoever. Just really, he could have been so much less. I could have just cut his whole parts out. But I'm sure maybe one day he'll have importance. But I say, when you're going in a calmer way, being able to go and actually read all these side stories, it's actually really good information and really worth it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, and I mean, there are 4 houses. There will be 4 books. We can only assume that the next book will be House of Many Waters. Tharian is obviously going to play a huge part of that. Like, you know, so even though, again, his stuff was he was super annoying.
I have a hard time feeling
so
like
that he can kind of move forward in the next book.
I have a hard time feeling like I would even want to read that book right now, because Tharian is by far my least favorite main character. And so I'm like, if it's just about him, I don't know how much I'm going to be interested in reading this book at this point in time.
The way I've thought about it is, number one, I really liked his like wife. I liked them. I actually think that I really ship that romance. So I hope that could be the romance. But the other thing is, Lydia is now extremely connected to House of Many Waters. So it would make a lot of sense that like book 4 is sort of focused on Tharian, but also Rune and Lydia, because again, even though she's not part of that house, right? She pledged herself to the Ocean Queen. You know, that is our way to learn more about that house.
Yes.
So that's kind of what I suspect is like book 4 is it'll be like Tharian, but then also Lydia and Rune.
Yeah, no, definitely. That's definitely what it could be. And actually, I want to throw out something that's a bit of a side thought. This is something I picked up on the second time around, because I'm kind of looking and going Ethan and romance, right? Now, it seems obvious that maybe his mate is Perry. But did I get, and I'm curious if you got this, a little bit of romance vibes between him and Hypaxia?
Yes. Yeah, I did. I definitely did. And
Yes.
I also kind of got romance vibes between him and Jessica. Like, I'm gonna be honest.
I know.
Like, I know Jessica's like theoretically dead, whatever, but there's also necromancers. Nobody's ever dead.
You never know. So, she has been alive 15,000 years.
You never know.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, he was vibing with all the ladies in his life.
I know, right? He was just like everyone. He's just manned up, and they're all like, hello. But yeah, I agree. First, I thought Jesper. I was like, but there's kind of a bit of a vibe going on here. Like, there's a bit of a, you know, she's manning him up, but you could tell Jessica was extremely fond of Ethan, even almost probably the most she's had since Bryce. That someone that she's
more than Bryce in some ways.
Yeah,
like
she was.
Yeah, way more
if
patient with him.
Die, I may have guessed that she might have jumped into a romance with Ethan. But then I'm reading the whole Hypaxia, Ethan, parasite scene, and like she's manning him up. Like she's supporting him to grow. And then I noticed him paying attention to her scent. There were just little Easter eggs, you know, little Easter eggs here and there where I just thought, oh, I feel like I'm picking up a few little romance vibes.
And at the end, Celestina says that Hypaxia is like willing to forgive her. But I don't know if I like ship them anymore.
No.
Like I loved them originally. Was like, yes, I love that we have this queer couple. I love that they're together. But I don't know, like I don't think Celestina needed to like die or anything. And but I also like she fucked up. You know?
Yeah, she really did. And I think when you do something to that level, like I think there was such a betrayal there. I think even though she realized she made a mistake, what she did was sort of so bad that I don't think there's any coming back from that. And I think for Hypaxia, that's just going to be broken now. That's just going to be broken.
I think so too.
Can we talk for a moment about the scene where Celestina is with Hunt and, you know, and Bryce, and they are, you know, Hunt basically wants to kill Celestina, like when they re-meet. What did you think of this scene?
So, yeah, I mean, it was really interesting. Hunt's rage for me was confusing as I was reading it the very first time. Like I understood why he was mad, right?
Yeah,
I get that.
Exactly. 100%.
But like Bryce was clearly able to like assess the situation and be like, I'm angry with you, but like now's not the time. We got shit to do. Let's go get this open and like move on. You know?
Yeah.
And Hunt was
We saw
not
a dark
able to
side to
do that.
Hunt.
He was really, his anger was frustrating. And he even says at one moment, like, in that moment, I hated Bryce.
Yep.
And that was like kind of jarring to
It
hear.
was.
Yeah.
Well, we've done research on this. No mate has ever said that they hate their mate, right? That's
Yeah.
really started to put questions in my
Even in
mind
anger.
about how real their mate calling is, because no
Mhm.
mate has ever said that.
Yeah.
His rage was quite concerning, and I'm worried now that he's got even more power now that he doesn't have the black crown on anymore. It seems like when he is overwhelmed with the lightning, he becomes irrational, unreasonable, and he almost loses
Mhm.
sight of the person that he really is. In this moment, Bryce was able to pull him back, but there's a really pivotal moment where he's got the lightning sort of still going on, and Bryce goes to take his hand, and he says, "I quickly pull my lightning back because I would never hurt her." And I just keep thinking about this major, well, I guess Orion theory and the Ember, Ember
Yeah.
being hit by the Autumn King and that being a deal breaker for them, and wondering whether we are seeing a potential risk here of, is Hunt going to attack Bryce at some point?
Yeah.
Is he going to attack her
Yeah.
with his lightning? Is he going to lose control?
Yeah.
It's, who knows at this point, but
Yeah.
it's certainly, I got very concerned by him saying that he hated her as his mate, and I got concerned that he sort of said, "I would never," because I just feel like you go, never say never, never
Never say
say
never.
never.
Yeah. Well, and I think this is a good transition into, you know, we have talked about literally every other couple and how much we loved their romance, their chemistry. We've talked
Mhm.
about Lydia and Rune. We've talked about even Therian and his wife, like how we really like that. We
Safia,
really took
yeah,
that.
yeah,
We've talked about this potential like romance budding with
mhm,
Ethan and potentially 3 other people, right? We have talked about every single person and every single couple and how much we loved it. In none of our favorite scenes and none of our favorite characters and none of our favorite couples have we talked about Bryce and Hunt.
yep.
And so I think now's the time. Like, what the heck is going on with Bryce and Hunt? Like,
Ugh,
they did not vibe in this book. I'm just going to call it for what it is. And I know a lot of people who felt very disappointed in this book, not because they didn't get the mass verse that they were expecting, but because they did not really enjoy the dynamic between Bryce and Hunt for most of the book. Now, I know that it kind of resolves itself in the end, but I think you said to me a couple days ago, like, there's just all these little cracks. And it's
yes,
like those cracks might widen, you know? Um,
exactly. It's, if I had to set a relationship status, I would have this as, it's complicated, because
yeah,
it
yeah,
is
yeah.
definitely complicated at this point. And there are some big potential theories that are out there that are being discussed that we will bring to this at a later date that might explain a bit more of where these characters are at, but they definitely haven't gone on the journey that we possibly thought they would. If this was sort of
Yeah,
a typical, I mean, the ending we got, you would kind of think they would have banded together, got the dagger from ACOTAR world, gone and fought the Asteri, been a solid partnership, and really known that they were made for each other and lived happily ever after. But that wasn't really what we got. We had them really fighting and arguing through a lot of this,
a
which
lot of the
again,
book.
and not like the good arguing, not like the kind of sassy sort of mate kind of back and forth that you'll sometimes get where you just know the next thing they want to throw each other on a bed and have their way with each other. This was like, this was like bad fighting. This was
Yeah.
like, I don't know if I like you that much fighting. Like, it
Mhm.
was,
Well,
uh,
it's no secret, right? Like, you and I have always said on this podcast, we did not believe that Hunt and Bryce were endgame.
yeah,
We know we have a lot of listeners who do think that, and like, that's completely fine opinion, right? Like,
100%.
in fact, like, they are together at the end of this book, right? Like,
Exactly. They've
so
been
I'm,
called
this is
mates.
not to say that, like, but I have people who love Bryce and Hunt who believe they are mates in Endgame who were frustrated with them in this book that I have talked to on Instagram. So I do think that people are feeling, you know, like if this is the romance, then something's got to change next book.
Yeah.
Or they cannot end up together. I was just realizing and thinking about this the other day. Another really pivotal scene is when right when Bryce teleports down to do the final, you know, like sending the Asteri into the
Black hole.
black hole.
Yes.
Right? You're sort of like walking yourself through, okay, what actually happened here?
Yeah, exactly.
You
Go
know,
break this down.
when when Hunt realizes what Bryce does, there's like a scene where we're in his head and he is like livid and he's like, she went to go and sacrifice herself and she didn't tell me. And he is like really, really upset by that. And, you know, because he thinks she's just going to go down and do like one more thing, you know, which is what they had talked about. She's like, okay, I can go down, I can do one more. And then he realizes like, no, she's not. She's actually going to sacrifice herself. And he's like, I can't believe she did this and she didn't tell me. And I think that's big.
Yeah.
I think that's a really big moment. That Bryce isn't clicking with Hunt and Hunt's not clicking with Bryce.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, you know, I think maybe first book I was into Hunt and Bryce, but by the second book, there just wasn't that epic romance. I've always spoken about, I don't feel like they're an epic romance. At best, they're just kind of boyfriend, girlfriend vibing, like, you know, or it's always just been this nice, light relationship. And they're always just talking about just being Bryce, just being Hunt, that if they got to let all the other stuff go. But it's like in this book, they can't ignore the fact that there's so much more than that, both of them. He's the Umbra Mortis. She is the Starlight Queen. And they are starting to not be able to just be Bryce and Hunt anymore. And it's starting to cause issues because Bryce wants to go into everything head first. That is who she is. She likes to blindside everyone. She's just going to do it. She's rising up to the occasion. And what we see throughout this book is Hunt is terrified. Now, look, fair enough. He deserves to be terrified. Like, he just went through all this massive torture. He's had 500 years of being tortured and downtrodden by the Asteri. He is rightfully scared. I'm definitely not going to say that he doesn't deserve to be in the space that he is in. But they're just not vibing right now because they're both not on the same page. And I think we're seeing that starting to cause these challenges and fractures to their relationship because they're not at the same place. He sort of almost just wants to go and hide. She's seen all this information that Selena's given and said these people were so evil to just go and hide and not actually try and defend the innocent. I have to do that. She is such a believer that it is up to her. She cannot just run and hide from these problems anymore. She has to rise up and has to do something to stop the Asteri. There's a lot here. There's a lot here.
Yeah.
It's going to take a lot to break down.
Again, it's like, if there's a lot to break down, which we'll do in future episodes. We're not getting into too much like theories and breakdowns this episode, but like, if you ask me like what is some of my least favorite aspects of this book, I will tell you it's any interaction between Bryce and Hunt. Like, they are just kind of annoying. Even honestly, both of them. It's not just it's a lot of it's coming from Hunt for me, but it's Bryce too. You know, and I think the point that you made of like Hunt's just so scared still, while that is completely acceptable and normal, that's not how we've seen other mates react in SJM books. We have always had, you know, them being like, you know what, I'm terrified, but I'm doing it with my mate. And, you know, if we go down, we go down together.
I trust them. I love them. I would do anything for them. And my number one focus is to protect them and be with them. Like, that's always sort of what it's felt like.
But also allow them to be who they need to be, you know? I think when Bryce said to Hunt, like, you're not giving me all of yourself. You're not all in. You're just allowing things. That's not okay with me. I think that's huge. And I don't know that he ever, from my perspective, he never really got over it. Now, again, like, we could be epically wrong here. I would be very disappointed, I will say, if this is how their story ends. Like, whether they are endgame or not, maybe even if they are endgame, I need another book where I see them like
sort out their issues.
Sort out their issues and then become sort of like more happily together. Like, for me to like love Bryce and Hunt, that's what I need. And like, okay, like, this is obviously a much more realistic book. Maybe SJM is trying to show us a more realistic picture of love and marriage, right? I mean, right? Like maybe that's what she's trying to do. It's not always like sunshine and rainbows. Sometimes we get frustrated with our partners and we can still love them. Um,
But
but at the
this
end of the
is
day,
a
that's like not what
fantasy
I
book.
want to read for.
Exactly.
You
This is
know what I
a
mean? Like,
fantasy book. This is a
yeah,
romantasy book.
exactly.
We want epic romances. We want earth-shattering love.
Yes.
This is a pivotal point of what we want to see, and this is not the kind of relationship that I aspire to. This is not kind of the connection that I would want to see from people, and it's
Yeah.
not who I really want to see from my characters. I have obviously much bigger ideas about where this is going to go. As I think
Mhm.
most of you know, I'm pretty keen on the Bryce Real theory, and I will not be getting off that train anytime soon, even though we got left with a very clear ending saying that it is done, guys. It is done. Like, finished, finito, give up on that right now. But I do not believe that Sarah J. Maas does anything by chance. And I think those first 25 chapters are significant. And I think with the cracks that have come out between Bryce and Hunt, and I think with some possible villains that are going to come into the game, we may see things really shake up in the next book, to the point that I would actually say to people, if you are a Bryce and Hunt fan, you may want to stop reading now. I feel like this is
Please
your
get good
exit
with your
point.
happy ending.
At least until other people read the next book and tell you if it's okay or not. Because, okay, I'm a massive like sci-fi aliens fan, right? I love the aliens movies, and the second one is my favorite. I've watched it like 50 times, absolutely love it. I went and watched the third one and I loathed it. It literally killed off all my favorite characters. It was an awful movie, an absolutely awful movie. So I like to pretend it never happened. I basically just in my mind, I finish it at the second one and I go, and that's it. They all live happily ever after. They go back to Earth. They have Newt. It's all cute. And
Yeah.
Hicks and Sigourney end up together. Hicks and Ripley end up together and they have Newt and they live happily ever after. The third, so yeah, I feel like this might be kind of similar. If the story goes in the way I think it's going to go, this may be the time to exit stage left and just
Yeah.
put the book down and say, what a great
And
trilogy.
yeah.
Let's leave it there.
And yeah. I kind of felt that way initially after reading Silver Flames. I was like, I really just wish this series had ended with Feyre and Rhys sailing into the sunset. I did not need to see Rhys become a dick.
Yes.
Basically,
Yes.
my first read of Silver Flames, I was like disappointed. I was like, I wish I hadn't read this. I wish I had just left it as B. But then as I continued to read things, as I saw where the master's was going, I was like, oh my God, I love that book. I love that book. I'm so happy I read that book. It's okay that like we can have nuances and characters, and Nesta and Cassian's romance is amazing. So, like maybe just trust that SJM will lead you to an epic place,
I know.
We
And
never
I
know.
think you actually just brought up something that's really interesting was Reese continued to be a complete douche in this book.
He did.
To
Yeah.
Nesta. I thought they sorted their stuff out in Silver Flame. I thought, after
No.
she saved Feyre, he was so thankful, threw her a great big wedding. I was like, okay, they're like besties now. Like, saved his mate, saved his baby. They're on really good terms. And then I still felt like he was really putting Nesta down. He was very forceful.
Mhm.
And Nesta has matured so much in this time. Like, Nesta
It's
was
like
one of my favorite characters in this whole book.
he can't see her for who she's become.
Yes.
At least from the small tiny snippets that we got.
Yeah, and it just
He's
felt,
still
but
trying to
even
order
just
her around.
every
It's
time,
so annoying.
even when Bryce was like jumping back in further on down the book, and it was always like, you better leave quickly because the High Lord's coming and he's gonna just kill you. It was always just it always just came across as very aggressive and scary, and not sort of the,
Mhm.
I don't know, I felt like when we first met Reese, he was very calm and he was, he was deadly and scary, but he was calm.
And
It was Hamlin that
logical,
was the one
yeah.
that went off about everything.
And if, like, somebody from his family decided to engage with, Bryce, he would trust them to do it and to do it well, and it's like he doesn't seem to have, like, the trust in Nesta, and I get it, like, trust takes a long time to build, but, like, I just want the old Reese back. I hope that we get him being a little bit better in future
I
books.
know. I know. I'm very confused at where Sarah is going with his character. With my
Yeah,
only exception being that maybe she's trying to make it that he maybe wouldn't be the ideal high king. And
yeah.
looking at Celine's kind of theories and that, you know, what she delivered to Bryce, it definitely outlines that Bryce has a very real, you know, that she could potentially try and become High Queen of
She has
Prythian.
a claim.
She
Totally.
has a claim, and
Totally.
that was one of the things she had to kind of put down and be like, "I'm not here to take over Prythian, like, I'm not." Okay, you know, she did get worried when she realized, "Oh, hey, I've sort of got royal blood, and you guys might think I'm here to try and take over, and I'm really not. I'm going back to Midgard, and I'm not a threat. I'm not a threat to the leadership here." But she has a very real claim. Hence why I
And,
think that there's more to this
that's
story.
a little protesting it too much,
Exactly,
like a little bit
exactly.
of a red herring.
Just
So,
quickly, what did you think of all the information that got released with Celine?
I can't believe we haven't even
I
talked
know.
about that yet.
It's like a whole
Like, there's
it's like a
so much
whole
in this
nother
book.
book.
It's
It's like
so
that's
hard
another
to,
book.
like, debrief. Yeah, like, I mean, so it wasn't exactly what I was expecting. There were parts of it that were surprising to me, which I love. I like say this all the time. Like, I love to be wrong. I love to theorize and clown and be wrong about it. It's like
Yeah,
it's fun to me, you
exactly.
know? Like, so I love it when I can get surprised. But I did. I was like, I just like inhaled that chapter. I need to go back and reread all those chapters because I read them so fast.
Yes.
I was super shocked that Thea was not amazing.
Mhm.
I kind of love
Yeah,
it.
she's
Like, at first I
actually,
was really
like,
disappointed, but now I'm
bad.
like kind of into it. Yeah. I loved that, even the narrator, Celine, kind of giving us this information, who thinks she's like noble for like passing this information on, was like just kind of glosses over these horrific things that they do. So I don't even know that I have like fully formed thoughts yet
Oh,
because it's all just like still washing over me. You know what I mean?
exactly. We got bombarded basically with so much information, and it's such an early point in the book. Like, normally you're going to get those kind of releases in the last 100 pages, and then
Yeah.
at the time I was thinking, wow, this is how Sarah J. Maas is changing the game. She's not just giving us an epic last 100 pages. She's basically giving us epicness even in the first quarter of the book. Like, my mind was getting blown. So many questions we had getting answered about, I don't know, the magic of the world, the starlight, the dust court, just so many things answered.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, also still so many questions. Like,
Yeah. It's actually like, I think that she sort of like flip-flopped it. Like, normally her last 100 pages are like boom, 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 and the first part of the book is kind of boring. I actually think she kind of flipped it. It's like the first 100 pages this time around were like intense, and then it kind of slowed down. It was boring after that, which
it
made
was
it kind of hard to like
Yeah, she did a Game of
get through.
Thrones episode, like season 8 on it,
Yeah.
like, which I like. I loved Game of Thrones, and I was so
Yeah.
disappointed with the ending. But like, where they had the first 3 episodes were insane, and then the rest of the book just kind of flopped away. And it was like, why
Yeah.
didn't she flip that around and have the epicness at the very end of the book? And
Yeah.
that, but of course, she couldn't have done that because they're in ACOTAR world. And it had to happen then,
It
so
had to
it
be
made
that way.
a huge
Yeah.
amount of sense. Why?
Yeah.
But I just still
And I
need so much more ACOTAR.
Yeah. And just so everyone knows, like, we plan to do an episode where we are sort of giving you like, this is what we learned, kind of breaking it down for you. Because if you're like me, like, not only do you need to reread it, but then you need somebody else to like summarize it for you. So we're going to kind of summarize it for everyone in an episode and then talk about like mass verse theories. But stay tuned for future episodes where, if you're also like, I can't even remember and piece together everything that I learned, we're going to do that for you.
Yeah, yeah. And we're actually going to deep dive into some theories as well,
Yes.
because we have been researching and we have found some absolute experts on some different theories about
Yeah.
not just this book, but about what the future is going to be. And truth is, both our minds are completely blown, like completely
Completely
blown.
blown. Yeah.
But it's going to take 1 or 2 episodes just to deliver this information to you guys,
Yeah.
because it's huge and
Yeah.
we've got to take you on that journey. We can't just tell you the ending and expect you to understand it. There's a lot of
Yeah.
detail, there's a lot of
We're just
evidence.
trying to like gloss over things. Like, so we are going to do an entire episode on just one theory.
Yeah.
So get excited because
Get
it's
excited.
going to be epic.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to have you so prepared. And we're going to go through all the other theories as well. We're going to try and give
Yeah.
everything a fair shot, suggesting different theories so you guys can make your own choices about what you think the future is going to be beyond these books. But we're going to try and give you that detail and that information. Might even bring along some subject matter experts to talk about it. But we're just super excited. There is still so much more to these books. Do not think that this is done, because there's still so much more. Now, quickly, was there anything you wish there was more of in the book? Was there anything you would have liked Sarah to have done more of, apart from Spice?
Ruin Lydia Spice. Ruin Lydia Spice. And ACOTAR world. But that, I mean, obviously I wanted more ACOTAR world.
Yeah.
But like, if I'm being sort of fair to what the book is, I would say like just like one more chapter on Rude and Lydia is really what I wanted.
Yes, I agree.
What about you?
I just, same. I think Rune and Lydia, I would have liked, because I loved their romance really more than Bryce and Hunt's. I would have loved to have been in that space a little bit more for a little bit longer. And just, as I said, longer first Spice scene would have been great. I was really interested in, I mean, not that I enjoy this more in the second read than the first read. The first read, I just wanted to rush past it. But the second read, I could really appreciate Lydia's boys. And I think this is really interesting, as there's a potential connection for her to Throne of Glass world. And so I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, do both the boys have fire powers, or is it just one of them that has fire powers?
I don't know that we know if they actually have fire power, but we see fire in their eyes, whatever that means.
Yes.
And I think we see fire in both eyes. Yeah.
And I think there's going to be some really,
when we go into
really
sort
interesting
of like
theories, around fire. I think we've had Ariadne and the dragon and Jessica talking about the importance of having a dragon, particularly with fighting the princes of hell, and dragonfire being one of the only ways to stop them. And then we've got the twins with potential fire, like Aelin's fire. That's one of the theories I can't wait to explore in the future and talk about and break down, because I think they could be quite important in the future. But
I'll need to reread some things, like I got to go back and make sure I'm right about stuff. Like right about the fact that both boys have fire. Like I just everything is just kind of washed over me the first time around. And so as I'm developing theories, I got to go and like check and like make sure I was right about stuff.
Yeah. Look, the truth for me was the book, I mean, I wanted more ACOTAR and I wanted more Throne of Glass. But when I look at it from a Midgard perspective, it pretty much gave me all the answers I've needed. It gave me Ethan, it gave me Jessica, it gave me Rune and Lydia. The only thing I really wanted that we didn't get, and this is coming from the Bryzriel fan that I am, was that I wanted Az and Bryce to reconnect at the end. I thought she would give him back the dagger and be like, sorry, I took Truth Teller. Like, please forgive me. At least just like a bit of closure. We got no closure for them. No closure whatsoever. It was just, she just handed it to Nesta and that was it. And after the hand holding and after pulling her to his chest and seeming sad when she left, I was just like, nothing. Like, so I was really sad. I was really sad that we didn't at least get some closure there on that relationship.
Yeah.
Even if it's just
and that like it again, even if you're not like a Bryce and Azriel kind of mates theorist, for me, because like I'm just gonna be honest with you guys. I'm coming over to the Bryzriel side. However, prior to reading the book, I was not, and I will say, like, I really wanted a different romance for Bryce, and I didn't get it, and that's okay. So, I was like, I had theories that it was gonna be Adis, or, I really wanted something else to happen, and I didn't get that, and that's okay. The other romances kind of carried it for me, but like as we've talked about, it was very unsatisfied with Hunt.
which is I think people, even if they were into Bryce and Hunt, I know a lot of people did come out of this unsatisfied, but I have a feeling that is actually intentional, we're not meant to come out of this book feeling great.
Yeah, I think so too.
Look, I wasn't into reading Sarah J. Maas when she released ACOTAR for the first time. We all had the luxury that we got handed these books, and we had 5 books to read. We didn't have to sit in an uncomfortable space and go, oh, that ending didn't sit quite right with me. What's going on here?
Right.
We always were able to jump straight into the next book and find out what really happened. Whereas this one, we have to sit in this space now for probably 2 years and go, what happened with that ending? What is going on with these characters? What's going to happen now? And that's why you're going to need our podcast to break this down for you so that you can get some hopeful closure and hope about what the future is going to be.
Yes. Yeah. You need us. Subscribe.
All right. Yeah. So on that note, let's wrap up this episode because we're going to bring you more episodes to come. We're going to continue to break down Crescent City 3, going into our theories, going into thoughts, reactions, what theories worked, what theories didn't. Please subscribe. Please listen to our podcast. Please share it with your friends. Thank you so much for joining us. Please feel free to comment. We love your comments. It helps us shape what we bring to this podcast. And we will see you guys next time.
Bye.
Bye.